guys all set? Let's rock and roll. The 2017 Vernon Town meeting will now come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for those we've lost in the last year. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you take your seats, please, we've got a number of people who've lost their lives over the past year from our town, both former select board members, former public servants, and our firefighters were involved with helping fight a horrific house fire in Warwick, Mass. Over the weekend, where 4 children and 1 adult lost their lives. Please, a moment of silence for all of them. Thank you. You may be seated. So tonight's morning, we will pick up after we recess for the evening, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 p.m. or shortly thereafter, until Wednesday night at 6:30 back here. And again, Australian ballot voting on Articles 1, 2, and 3 will be at the Town Hall tomorrow from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Now, Robert's Rules of Order are the basic rules for this meeting, except where Vermont state law takes precedence. You can change Robert's Rules with a 2/3 vote if you desire. You cannot change Vermont state law. Just want to let you know. Again, registered voters, well, Mike Hebert will try to do that for you. Registered voters of the town will get a voter card when they enter. Now, to gain the floor, please hold up your voter card and address the chair, and you'll be recognized. Our meeting is being recorded by Brattleboro Community TV for broadcast on Comcast and Southern Vermont Cable. You can watch the meeting on Channel 10 or online at brattleboro.tv.org later this week. Now, for the sake of the viewers at home, so they can hear you, because you all have wonderful voices, when you get recognized, wait for the microphone. Seth and Ian will be running around with microphones tonight. Then please stand and state your speech, and again, use a microphone. An article must be moved and seconded by the body and restated by the moderator before it is under consideration and debate on the article can begin. After I restate the motion, the person who made the motion has the right to speak first in the debate. Articles may have only one amendment at a time associated with them, and amendments to an article likewise may have only one amendment at a time associated with them. So you can amend the amendment, but you can't amend the amendment to the amendment to the amendment. Okay? Just want to make sure you know that. After you've spoken once on a particular article, you will not be recognized a second time during discussion on that article or amendment until all the other voters who wish to speak have done so. Robert's Rules allows a given speaker only 2 shots at the apple on a given motion and limits the duration of speeches to 10 minutes. Voting in all manners will be by voice, division of the House, or by paper ballot. Division of the House can be requested by one voter before or after a voice vote. Vermont state law allows for a paper ballot on the request of 7 voters, unless the town has made other arrangements, again before or after a voice vote or after a division of the House. Now, I would require a show of hands or rising if you want a paper ballot. Then I would make sure that I gave that inclination afterwards. Debate may be cut off by a motion to move the previous question. You hear the motion to move the question a lot. That's a motion to cease debate on whatever you're currently discussing. That requires a 2/3 vote. All motions, remarks, and discussion must be addressed to the moderator, and I'll do my best to recognize you in the order that you've raised your hands. After being recognized, again, please stand up, wait for the microphone, give your name, and speak in a loud voice so your comments can be heard by everyone. Now, your speeches must pertain to the merits of the question. According to Robert's rules, you are not allowed to engage in personal attacks on a member of the body or their motives. Vermont state law prohibits consideration of articles that have not been warned. This means you cannot take binding action under the article Other Business, and you cannot amend warned articles such that they would deal with business that has not been placed on the warning. Reconsideration of an article is allowed under Vermont state law until a point is reached where the body has begun working on the other article. It means that if you voted down an article, you can make a motion to reopen consideration of the article by a person on the prevailing side. Yes, I will ask you how you voted. However, once the article is on the floor, moved and seconded, no more action can be taken regarding the previous article at the meeting. Now, my role as moderator is to help you do what you want to do, accomplish the business you want. Raise your hand, ask questions if you don't understand what's happening, or if you think what is happening is wrong for some reason, or if you want to do something but don't know how to proceed. Now please, if you feel I'm acting improperly, let me know. You have the right to challenge the moderator's ruling, and the assembly can vote on whether I'm right or you're right. Again, Seth and Ian Dio are handling the microphones this evening. The food is being done by the Vernon PTC. And there are a number of non-residents at the town meeting, which, unless there's objection, I will allow them to speak because their comments will be pertaining to articles during the evening. They include Sheriff Keith Clark, Sergeant Chris Norton from the Windham County Sheriff's Office, Chris Barbarian, the Vernon Library Director, Emergency Management Director David Emery, our Town Administrator Michelle Pong, Town Attorney Larry Slason, Windham Southeast Superintendent Ron Staley, Business Manager Frank Rucker, and Vernon School Principal Dana Gordon Macy. Now, with all of that, again, Articles 1 and 2 will be voted by Australian ballot tomorrow between 7 and 7. And Article 3 will also be voted by Australian ballot tomorrow, which is, of course, paper ballot at the town hall. But since it is a matter that requires discussion, and again, I'll read the motion or the article. Shall the voters of Vernon Town School District approve the school board to expend $4,079,300, which is the amount the Vernon School Board has determined for the ensuing fiscal year. It's estimated this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $16,866 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 14.6% higher than spending for the current year. With that in mind, we will give the floor to Mr. Hebert, the Vernon School Board Chair, to introduce his board and begin discussion about the school budget to be voted tomorrow. Mr. Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
It's on. Just be real close to it, Mike.
Can't get much closer. Can you hear it? No. Can you hear me now? Yes. Hey, I can get a job for Verizon. Okay, before we get into the budget, I would like to
Louder, please.
I feel like Tim on the radio. You ever see Tim on the radio? He's like got the mic in his mouth. Okay, before we get on to the budget, I would like to honor someone this evening, Dr. Ron Staley. This will probably, unless we have a special town meeting, be Ron's last town meeting with us. He's been our superintendent for 15 years and has helped us lead our district in its educational purposes. So I have a little certificate for him. And what it says is, this award is presented in recognition and appreciation of your dedication to the students and families of the Vernon Town School District during your 15 years of service as superintendent of our schools. Ron Staley. And I must say, it's actually not an easy job for him because over the 15 years, Vernon's always been somewhat of a thorn in his side at times. But it's been It's been a great relationship, and we've been very fortunate to have him as our superintendent, and we wish him luck in any of his new endeavors. Now, Mr. Moderator, you've asked the question. We don't have to move it because it's Australian ballot, correct?
No, you don't have to move it, you have to discuss it.
Okay, then we shall discuss it. Now, for some folks, when you heard the article read, the thing that the school board really wants you to understand this evening is our budget is not going up 14%. When you read the article, that's what appears to be happening. Our budget, in fact, is a decrease of 6.4% from last year. What has caused the 14% per pupil cost increase is a change in how the state counts equalized pupils. What's happened is they have changed a factor which makes it appear we have fewer students, when in point of fact we do not. Our student population is 167, and hopefully it'll increase as time goes on, but we have been stable with our school population. The state requires that the article be written that way, and the board is very concerned because I know when I read the article, I went, we're not going up 14%. And I'm afraid tomorrow that's the impression people are going to get. What I would like you to bear in mind is we're going down 6.4% in our budget. Our taxes will go up, if for no other reason because VY is no longer operating. And if you recall a few years back when VY announced they were not going to generate electricity any longer and they ceased generation, the law at that time would have required Vernon to go to 100% tax rate, statewide tax rate. Prior to that, we were at 75%, which my predecessor, over periods of time, had negotiated with the state to get us a better tax deal because they took VY off our grand list, and we sent the state a lot of money. So when I went to the State House and said, you know, you can't just put us at 100%, we did a ramp off. So each year, over a 5-year period, the tax rate in Vernon will go up, or the statewide property tax rate in Vernon will go up approximately 8%. Next year it'll go to 100%. And it's not that we're going to be paying more than our neighbors, it's that we're going to be equalized in our tax rate with other folks because VY is no longer operating. So when VY left, we lost more than just our friends and neighbors. We lost a very valuable taxpayer to our community. But again, I want you to please bear in mind the budget is not going up 14%. It's a change in how the state calculates an equalized pupil. And what that also does is they will pay us less money, so your local share tends to go up. So it's shifting burden to local taxpayers from the state. We can go into more detail on that question if you like. Mr. Rucker can give you a lengthy explanation. I don't know if he can make it any clearer than I have, but if people would like him to do so, that would be great. If not, we would just as soon open up the floor to questions that people may have about our budget or how we've come to the 6.4% decrease in budget. Because going through page by page or line by line, if you look at the lines, they have not changed much at all. There are not any huge significant changes in our budget. We've changed in how we do some of the things with special education, but for the most part, our budget is pretty much the same as it was last year. The changes in what we've done with special ed are what triggered the reduction in the budget itself. So, unless a board member would like to explain further, I would introduce the board and then open it up to questions. To my immediate right is Deb Hebert. She's presently a board member. Actually, the other 3 board members are all up for re-election, so please vote for them. They're doing a good job. And right now, with Act 46 and the turmoil we're in, it'd be nice to have consistency on the board. So Deb Hebert to my right, and over on my far left is Sandy Morrison. And a little bit closer is Carrie Amadon. And our clerk cannot be here this evening. That's Walter Bro. He acts as our clerk, and he is away at business for his college where he works, so he will not be with us tonight. But if a board member would like to say something further, or we'll open it up for questions. I mean, we're here to provide what you need to know, and if you let us know what you need to know, we'll try and help you out. Questions?
Questions for the board? Questions for the board on Article 3? Going once, going twice. I don't see any further questions for the board.
That has never happened before. I don't know what to think about that. But, I would, before we switch places with the select board, I would really like to offer the board's appreciation of our fire department and all that they do and all they've gone through recently. And Tim did jokingly say that we can change laws, and we can. And one of the laws that we are working on right now is that firefighters and emergency folks, they see some horrific stuff, and it can cause some serious problems to them emotionally. And we're trying to get workman's comp for emergency personnel on par with regular compensation for an injury on the job. We've convinced a lot of people in the legislature finally that somebody seeing those horrific things can respond emotionally, and it can cause issues for them mentally that need to be treated, and we should treat them. They do us a great service, we should do them service. Again, thank you all for showing up. If you have any questions, board members will be here throughout the night. If you think of anything, we'll be glad to answer whatever we can.
There is a question over here. Please wait for the microphone.
I knew if I did long enough, we'd get one.
And please stand.
Make it easy.
Hi, Paula Ewing. I have a question regarding, you said the funding portion, the state has done something with special education, is that correct?
No,
Changing
they're two separate things. One is how you count equalized students, which there's a factor, different types of students, whether they have special needs or they need language services, they count differently. Kids in poverty count for a greater value when you're trying to calculate what it costs to educate them. That's the factor that the state changed. That changed our equalized pupil number. The special ed portion is what we've done with the supervisory union. There's been consolidation of special ed services. And as a result, our share of what we pay in special ed services has gone down. We have fewer students utilizing the service. So those are the 2 points there. Do you have something, Ron?
Well, if I can speak to that.
I'll get Mr. Staley a microphone, please. Mr. Staley.
Just that a couple of years ago, the state law required special ed services to be consolidated through the supervisory union for professional staff. And so on page 59 of your report, you see under special ed assessment, towards the bottom of the page, it dropped about $200,000 from the amount that you were budgeting within your budget. Now it comes through the SU assessment. I think the significant thing there, along with further up on the page, special ed paras, towards the middle of the page, you see a reduction of 76,000 to 26. So again, those are being funded through the supervisory union. And the really good thing about this is we've found over the last 2 years where we implemented this, we've been able to save about $300,000 each year throughout the district. So your assessment will be lower. And the really good thing is that because we are utilizing a higher student to teacher ratio, we were at about one teacher to 12 students, or actually it was like 7.5 students. So now we're up to 1 to 12, in some cases 1 to 15. Those are manageable rates in terms of a teacher working with 12 to 15 students, and as a result, it's saved us quite a bit of money. The other thing we've been able to do with those savings is we're spending money on the paraeducators for training as behavioral technicians. Paras are oftentimes the first people that are dealing with some of the most challenging behaviors, and we feel like those people need the investment of some professional development so they can manage those students in an appropriate way. So again, that's been a real benefit, and that's just started this past year, and it'll continue into the future. But we feel like that consolidation of special ed has actually served the students much better than just individually by district.
But they're not going to, it's not going to affect what they're being taught and how they're being taught?
Absolutely
Right.
not. Absolutely not.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
the state and federal guidelines, and our special ed director and coordinators in the central office work very closely with principals and the special educators in the schools. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for the school board or the school administration? Question over on that side about halfway back, and then I'll recognize the young lady, Ms. Bergeron.
Carol Hammond, is it proper to ask at this time about the Act 46 and where we stand?
We're going to give that question wide latitude because it could indirectly pertain to the budget or any future budget preparations. So if the board would like to answer, that's fine. Mr. Heber.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. There are multiple bills in the legislature presently that could impact Act 46 and how Vernon's relationship works within a new unified district. I had put in a bill, it's House 239, if anyone wanted to get on the legislative page and look at it. I have a couple of copies here if someone would like it. With that bill, the chair of the House Education Committee, when I went to him and said, we'd like to vote ourselves out of a supervisory union because of all that's transpired, he said he would entertain that if we could get it narrowly scoped enough. So basically what my piece of legislation said is if you're a town which operates a school district K to 6 and you tuition 7 to 12 and you also belong to a school union, you can vote yourself out of a district. That's us. There's no other town like that in the state. He looks upon that favorably. I had a hearing last week with the House Ed Committee. I thought it went very well. On the Senate side, they asked me to come down and review a bill with them that they're proposing on the Senate side. Has a far broader impact, but basically there's several portions in that bill that would assist us in reaching our goals that we want to have here in Vernon of school choice and being a district operating alongside of another district. There are changes in that bill that change the way a side-by-side works. For those that don't know, if you have a district, you create a merger, and you have two like districts, which Vernon doesn't have one, but we'll use Guilford as an example. If they were a K through 6 with choice 7 through 12, we could join with them as a like district and be a side-by-side district to the new unit, the new unified district. Their proposal would allow one school to do that. Also, the proposal in the Senate would allow a school to withdraw from a supervisory union or a school union if it were for the purpose of advancing an Act 46 merger. And when I discussed that with the attorneys and with the intention, with the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and asked him specifically, how does that relate to Vernon? He said, well, you would be withdrawing so the other towns could facilitate their merger, so you fit into that bill. So there are ample opportunities for change to Act 46. I know a lot of people think there may not be changes, but there are a significant number of bills being proposed. But more significantly, the Senate is doing a committee bill, which is going to be very far-reaching and very wide in scope. And it's getting a lot of traction and a lot of support within the Senate and certainly within the House for representatives that have communities that have issues with Act 46, of which There are many. So specifically, where we are with Act 46 is that the Dummerston Town did not vote to allow us out of the supervisory union, out of the high school union. So we are now relying on the legislation to move forward so that we can vote ourselves out of that. As you know, Vernon has overwhelmingly voted to be out of the union district. What would happen would be, and this is again another point we've got to iron out, but in all likelihood, what would happen would be that the legislation is going to pass. The one factor that everyone's pushing for is it will be enacted upon passage, which normally a bill would pass and not be enacted till the following July. There's a lot of urgency in getting the Act 46 mergers throughout the state done. So what would happen is if either of these bills pass or both bills pass, they will be enacted upon passage. So as soon as the governor signs his name on them, they would become law that day. And there's no indication from the governor that he does not support this. So it looks like they could move forward, and that's what would occur. If that were to occur, we would then have an informational meeting to let folks know what the current conditions were, how choosing to be in the merger or not be in the merger, the potential impacts to the town. So if a vote were required again, and again, we're not sure if that would be required. I think it probably would be. But if it were, that the people in the town of Vernon would have all the current information of all the ramifications, be they negative or positive, to a merger. So that's where we stand now. There's nothing definitive. I think the Act 46 Study Committee has forwarded the articles that the other 4 towns have for merger. They forwarded them to the Board of Education, and Mr. Staley, correct me if I'm not correct, and they're asking an opinion on how they should proceed at this point in time. So right now, we're pretty much on hold between the legislation and seeking an opinion from the Board of Ed. And I'm not sure how the Board of Ed will react because they know there's a lot of legislation pending. So I don't know if they would make a determination with everything that's in flux.
Further questions for the school board? I thought I saw a hand up in the middle of the crowd toward the front of the room.
Yeah, he answered it.
Okay, good. Any further questions for the school board by any?
Tim.
Yes. There's actually, we'll go here and then we'll go there. How's that? So we'll wait for the microphone and.
Hi, Linda Starpinski. When you were mentioning, Ron, that special ed is shared and we're also sharing the paras, if we're not in the new thing, will we be sharing still or not? How is that going to work?
Yes, the plan would be, if a merger went through with the other towns, that Vernon would probably contract services with the new union district. I'll wait. Yeah. So the plan would be that the state board would determine how Vernon is linked with the district. And what we have talked about with the Vernon board is that we would ask the state board, since the proximity is so close, that we would continue with the relationship that we've had. Vernon would not be in the union district, but we would contract services. Frank had done a preliminary analysis of special ed staff and other services, central office services and things like that. And it's not a huge increase to what you're paying now, so we felt that that made a lot of sense. The state board would have to determine that, and as Mike said, we're looking for guidance from the state board on the whole merger anyway, because if we don't have a vote, they have to assign a district assign us to a unified district. And so we would advocate for them to use our articles of agreement as a merger, and depending on what happens with the legislation that Mike talks about, hopefully Vernon could be part of the unified district and maintain school choice, or they could contract services.
Another question, I believe it was in the center of the room, the gentleman with the orange t-shirt.
He answered my question.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for the school board? I don't see any, so with that in mind, again, Article 3 will be voted by Australian ballot tomorrow 7 to 7 at the Town Hall, along with all town offices. We'll take a short recess to allow the school board to get off the stage and the select board to get on. We're in recess. I call the meeting back to order. Vernon Town meeting is back to order. Please take your seats. We move on to Article 4, and prior to Article 4, we will have a couple of announcements from the Chair of the Select Board, Mrs. Howe, and from Mrs. Harris. We recognize Mrs. Howe.
First of all, I want to introduce...
Make that louder, please.
I got to talk right into it again.
Yes.
First, I want to introduce the board, the Vice Chairman, Sandra Harris, and over to my left, far left, is Emily Jacoby, sorry, Emily, and Steve Skibanowski and Josh Unruh. I want to thank them all for all the years I've been here, and everyone that I've worked with. But I want to read something. This is a little bit unconventional, but this is my last town meeting, except for Wednesday night. I'll be here for whatever we have remaining. On Wednesday night, I will be done as a select board member.
Excuse me, could you speak louder, please? We cannot hear you.
Okay, sorry. All right, I'll hug it. Wednesday night, I'll be done as select board member, actually tomorrow night because of the election. However, I will continue as Justice of the Peace and Notary Public, and will likely also work on some committees after a good long time on a vacation that I clearly need to clear my thoughts of town business. I have worked for the town for a very long time, and all of you have been very important during my journey of 35 years. I began working for the town in the spring of 1982. When I started my first job, it was driving the senior van. That began a lifetime of involvement with Vernon. The following is a list. I hope that you don't think I'm bragging. I'm just very proud of what I've done and would like to share it with everyone. As of late, the Select Board, Vice Chair and Chairman for many years, Justice of the Peace, as I said. I'm on the Cemetery Committee and have been for a while. I was on the Vernon newspaper as managing editor and staff writer. I served Vernon Emergency Management as radiological officer, disaster land officer, health officer, code red officer, transportation officer, supply officer, and finally, as emergency management director. Before I became emergency management director, I worked very closely with Annette Royden for many, many years. I am so very thankful for all that I had learned from Annette Royden. I delivered all hazard and weather radios and batteries for VY. I was Meals on Wheels driver. I was on the Planning Commission as vice chair, a member of the Vernon Volunteer Fire Department. Wasn't long, but I was proud to have been with them. And I was on the Firemen's Association Board. I served on the Town Sewer Research Committee and on the Finance and Capital Plan Committees. I was honored to serve as Vernon's Town Treasurer and Assistant Treasurer for many years as well. I was on the Farmland Committee as chair, and I served on the Town Picnic Committee. And as I mentioned before, I started out as town van driver. There are a few people that have played a special role on my journey. Although I'd like to thank each and every one of you, I cannot because we will be here all night. So I'm going to just pick out a few that's been very special to me. My best friend, Shirley Mokler, who passed on a couple years ago, she started out as police dispatch and then become ultimately my assistant. Don Holland, who was my boss and town treasurer when I was assistant treasurer. Linda Starpinski for helping me take over her position as editor of the Vernon newspaper, and Brandy Bro, who I learned a lot from. Martha Dunkley, who I worked very closely with while she was auditor and while I was assistant and town treasurer. During that time, we became great friends, and I'm blessed to have her as a friend. Sally Brassor for being a great assistant to me and ultimately the town treasurer, and now currently Cindy Turnley. Thank you. Most recently, Jeff Dunkley, Josh Unruh, Emily Bergobi, Sandy Harris, Steve Skibanowski, Janet Rasmussen, Katrina Lawley, Tim Arsenal, and Ina, and Michelle Pong. You are all wonderful and wonderful to me, and I am so happy for our lasting friendships. I haven't mentioned everyone, as I said, for fear I would forget somebody. There are so many of you whose efforts and commitments to the town have made such a difference in the town of Vernon and its people. And you've worked so very hard for it. I want every one of you to know that you have taught me so much along my way, and my heart cannot thank you enough. I do, however, want to thank a couple of people who are very special to me. Mary Lynn Sherwin, you and I have been on many committees together. And before that, we went to school together, and Mary Lynn would be very angry if I didn't tell you all she's younger than I am. Through the years, a lifelong friendship has evolved, one for which I am so very proud of. I'm very thankful that I am able to call you friend. Thank you also for the many years of dedicated service that you have given to the town. You truly are one of a kind. I also want to give a very special thanks to Patty O'Donnell for being a person who has given so many dedicated years of service to the town. The town owes you, Patty, a debt of gratitude, and I want you to know that I truly appreciate you and have learned a lot from you. Thank you, Patty, for being a friend, not only to me, but to the people of this great town. Thank you very much for all you have done for the town of Vernon and for me. Last but not least, I want to thank every one of you for supporting me through all the years. God bless you all.
Can we get Mrs. Harris a microphone? What's that? Oh, good. Come on down. The podium is yours.
First of all, there's a couple of people, you can hear me tonight, right? There's a couple of people we need to thank. One is Emily Vergobi. Emily came on a couple of years ago. She brought young, fresh ideas. She has an incredible financial mind. She can look at things objectively. I tend to look at things with people's faces, and she's very good at pulling me back. Emily, would you come forward, please? And the next one is for Chris Howe, and I had actually written a speech, but since she said it all, I will just note that I've known her since first grade. I've seen her grow. She's a very passionate person. If you don't know that, you don't know her. She's passionate when she's right. She's passionate when she's wrong. And when she's wrong, she's quick to accept responsibility. Chris, would you come forward, please?
I have to say, it takes a special person to serve any organization for 35 years. So we're blessed to have all of our town employees, all of our volunteers in this town. One other note before we move on to Article 4, in mentioning the people who are not currently residents of Vernon who might have expertise to discuss, I did want to add Fire Chief Todd Capon to the list, who temporarily is out of town, but plans to be back as soon as possible, from what we understand. So you will be allowed to speak unless there's any objection from the crowd. With that, we move on to Article number 4. The article reads, shall the voters authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,928,262.78, of which $1,670,062.78 will be raised by taxes, $258,200 by estimated income. The budget is on pages 21 through 25, the estimated income on page 26 of your town report. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mrs. Howe.
can I just say so moved, or do you want me to read the whole thing to limit time?
I would be happy if you said so moved, as I was directed so by a moderators conference this past month that says, yes, you can save that extra 5 seconds.
Okay.
So, without objection, that's your motion.
That's my motion, so moved.
Do we have a second? Moved and seconded that the voters authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,928,262.78, of which $1,670,062.78 to be raised by taxes, and $258,200 by estimated income. This is how you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Moderator, I would like to say that Windham County tax amount has come in at $4,145 more than we had estimated. So I would like to amend the motion to authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,932,407.78, of which $1,674,207 will be raised by taxes and $258,200 by estimated income.
Do we have a second? Moved and seconded that the motion be amended to read to authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,932,407.78, of which $1,674,207 will be raised by taxes and $258,200 by estimated income. Discussion on the amendment.
Yes, I'd like to go through a couple of things that have changed, that we've done.
On the amendment, we have to go on the amendment strictly.
No, nothing on the amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Mrs. Turnley.
Cindy Turnley, Treasurer. Which line item are you changing in the budget?
Windham County, I'm sorry, Windham County tax.
And what is the new figure, please?
$4,145 even.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the amendment to Article number 4?
Mr. Moderator, Cindy, you do know that's more, right? $4,145,000 more. $4,145, I'm sorry, yes. More.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment to Article number 4. Seeing none, we'll move for a vote. All those in favor of the amendment as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Article 4 has been amended, so again, the new motion is that the town authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,932,407.78, of which $1,674,207 will be raised by taxes, $258,200 by estimated income. Discussion on the amended motion. Mrs. Howe.
Okay, the increases to our budget were in salaries, except for no one got an increase in pay. It's just because there's 53 pay periods in this next, in the next fiscal year. And the EOC building expenses were added to the general budget. And let's see, the major cuts to the budget were at the start of the budget talks, every department was asked to present the budget with a 6% reduction in costs. Each department complied with that request. Maintenance foreman's duties to be filled by office staff and contractors. The current salary and insurance and assistant was $66,839. Estimated contractor cost is $16,500. Total savings with contractor is $50,339. Total budget, total savings for in the buildings and grounds was $64,239. From in the police coverage, last year was 20 hours, equaling $225,724. This year, 20 hours, $232,960. Proposed is 80 hours a week. 80 hours a week at $145,600. The savings will be $80,120 for the year. Employee medical insurance, we increased their contribution from 17.5% to 20%, savings to the town compared to last year's $9,867. Reduction in employees' hours. Assistant treasurer and assistant town clerk were reduced from 29 hours a week to 20 hours per week. Total savings, $17,689. An RFP was issued for audit services, saving $6,000 over last year. Cemetery expenses are down, thanks to the cemetery committee and their hard work, $6,820 by tapping into the funds set to cover maintenance at some of the cemeteries. Increase overall salaries is due to 53, as I said, 53 pay periods for fiscal year 17 and 18. There were no pay raises. The general budget reduced $241,519.
Further discussion on Article 4 as amended. In the middle of the room, close to the back. Yes, that's you, Mr. Ball.
Mike Ball. Question, and then I have a comment. The question is, you said it's going to revise the sheriff's, this budget is going to revise the sheriff's department, basically calls or patrols to 80 hours a week, and I believe that there is no call-ins, callbacks. It's just for the period of time that is being budgeted for. Is that correct?
That was the select board's interpretation. And after we're done talking about this, I was going to ask the sheriff to come up and present what he has.
I just wanted to point out, if you turn to page 38, and it's basically the people present, the voters have the option of basically knowing that in a lot of cases we are told by dispatch that we cannot go in because something that was said or something that was heard on the phone, they believe it's an unsafe condition. And that means that people cannot respond. I cannot enter that house or go into the property until I am cleared by a law enforcement officer. And I know that Sheriff Clark is going to talk about this, but the bottom line is, I just want to say, is that I get very frustrated when I have to wait to take care of somebody. And I know that they need my help, or they need the fire department's help, or rescue's help. We cannot go in. So the bottom line is, if you want to wait, And he's going to talk about this as far as who's going to respond, because there's no callback portion to this contract or this budget, is that it's going to have a could have a significant impact on the health and safety of the public. I do not agree with this budget. I would say leave it the same as it is now in order to protect people. And the other thing that people don't see, that I see, is when I respond, is that in most cases, Windham County Sheriff's officer is on scene holding the hand of the person that basically is an extremist. They're taking information. They are qualified to perform first aid and CPR if they needed to before I get on scene. And in a lot of cases, they are on scene in a couple minutes, and I'm on scene 5 to maybe 8 minutes later because of where I live. And the fact that we have to get up in the middle of the night and get dressed, and they're already dressed in their cruiser. So I would say is that to basically vote against the coverage that's for a sheriff's department and leave it the same way as it is right now. Thank you.
I believe we did expect to see Sheriff Clark called. Sheriff, if you wish, you may have the floor, then we'll go for other questions.
Yes. Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I just want everybody to know this is a budget that we've put together, and it is now up to the townspeople to either add or take away. And you have every right to amend this budget by line item.
Sheriff, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Tim. And I appreciate, we were just talking back, it's really nice to see the turnout that this town gets every year. It's impressive. I try to make as many town meetings as I can around the county, but I will tell you, this town always has a great turnout. So what I've done is, I think it's important for you to understand the numbers versus just the dollar amount. So I put together just a couple of quick slides so you can get a better understanding of what the change would mean if you go to the proposed budget by the select board. So during this current fiscal year, we provide 20 hours a day. That's 140 hours a week. This was a decision that you made last year. We went from providing, an officer every hour of every day, which comes out to 168 hours. We reduced it by 4 hours per day. Well, what we did is we flexed the schedule. There's not a 4-hour block every day that we're not on the road. Usually what happens is like the day shift officer will go off duty. The night shift officer may come on an hour later. We flex around the periods of time when we think there's not going to be as much need. And we always have available people for call-outs during that time. So under the proposed budget, it would go down to 80 hours a week. So you're looking at less than 12 hours a day. Essentially, you're looking at about somewhere around a 48% decrease in the amount of time we'd be on the road. So again, that if you look at just the dollar cost, the proposed budget is a 35.5% decrease in the cost. Can I have the next slide, please? So this just gives you some idea, and I know it's tough to read. You gotta love Excel. I wish Mark Anderson was here. He put this spreadsheet together. Mark's at training down in Georgia, and he's my techno geek. He's really good at the numbers. But bottom line is, this is the type of call volume that we've had over the last 12 months. This isn't based on fiscal year. This is actual calendar year from January 2016 to December when we closed the books for the end of the year. We had a total of just under 2,000 calls, and the big ones are on there. We stopped at the ones that end at 12, the rest are 8 and fewer. But one of the ones I want to point out are the agency assists at 174. And most of those are those fire department and rescue response calls that we go to. The deputies carry the fire pager. My dispatchers pay attention to those calls in case they miss the pager going off. And we're there within minutes. I can't think of a time where we've had to call someone out to cover that rescue call. So we are out on the road when those are happening. And I will tell you, the feedback we get from you folks and other people here in town is that they like the fact that they're there within minutes. You'll also see that we have a high DUI number. I think it's at 19. We've tried to find ways to reduce that by being proactive and doing some education, but you still have a pretty high DUI number. If we go down to 80 hours a week, a lot of that proactive work will be reduced. So I go to the next slide, please. So this is what we're really talking about here. So your current level is 20 hours a day. We did ask for a 3.2% increase over this year's costs for next year. That basically was to cover increase in salary for my deputies and some increased costs around insurances and the cost of just doing business. So our proposed budget was $232,960 to keep what you currently have with no changes. What I want to point out is if you look at back when we took over FY13-14, your budget for your police department was $376,000 plus. That didn't include, purchasing new cruisers or any of those other capital equipment costs, and we're still $140,000 less than what you were paying in 2013. So we're still saving you quite a bit of money. If you go down to 80 hours a week, you're at 50%, a little less than 50% of what you had in 2013, and you'll be right around a 42% reduction over what you have this year, the number of hours we're actually on the road. And that's a pretty significant cut to the services you've been receiving. And I think it's important to understand it's not always about the dollars, but really to take a look at the hours and what you're comfortable with. Next slide, please. So here's the big stuff, folks. You're not going to have overnight coverage. We're not going to be out at night. We're not going to do the call-outs because basically it would be an unfunded overtime. There wouldn't be enough hours in that 80 hours a week to flex the overtime. Limited weekend coverage, again, I have to control the overtime and costs. Some of this would be negotiated with the contract if you went with the 8 hours a week. But you'd be seeing a significant reduction overnight and weekends. Again, no call-out response by my agency because there would not be any funding to do that. And you'd be relying on the state police for coverage when we're not on. If you're not aware, they've moved the barracks out of Brattleboro. It's now in Westminster. And there's no guarantee that a trooper is going to be in this area or respond from this area. The call-out's based upon the entire troop area. So if you had a call out, that trooper may be coming from as far away as Weathersfield. So just be aware of that call out response. So that's just an overview of the change you'd be looking at if you shifted from the 140 that you have right now down to the 80 hours a week that's been proposed by the select board. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Further discussion on the article right here. Please wait for a microphone.
Hi, Paula Ewan again. I just want to say that I think that it's a shame that we are dropping or want to drop our police coverage so drastically. I live on, and others live on a very, very busy road, and they go flying down I have two children with special needs at my house. And there's of course, the recreation center, when it is open, I have not seen a cruiser like there was this last year and even better the year before. I think we've suffered by cutting down to where we are at this current point with the drug issues that we have. We're on state line each way. And I don't think now's the time to cut it down. I mean, what are we talking, $80,000 for safety, for our kids, for our citizens, for our senior citizens? My goodness gracious, I'm sure that we could cut the fat maybe a little more at the top instead of people's safety, children's safety. And my goodness gracious, the way that there are so many terrorist attacks on schools, I just think it's wrong, and I hope the people will vote this budget down. Thank you.
Further discussion on article number 4 as amended. In the middle of the room, the lady with her hand up.
Hi, Mary Ellen Weston. I too just want to give a good word for the sheriff's department and all they're doing. I know that my husband and I live on Tyler Hill, and we had a break-in over the summer. Our doors were locked, and they kicked in our door when we weren't there, and I know there's other people in town that have had break-ins, and we really were grateful to the sheriff's department for all they did for us during that time. And I just think too that it seems like we should be able to cut the costs in other areas with all the things that are going on in the world today. We're not some small, little, safe community. Thank you.
I see a number of cards up. The chair, however, will recognize Mrs. Harris, and then we'll get to some of the other questions out in the audience. Mrs. Harris.
I keep hearing, can you hear me? All right, can you hear me? I keep hearing vote the budget down. The beauty of this budget, it's not ours, it's your budget. We give you some numbers, and it's up to you if you want to pay them. If you want more, all you have to do is make a motion to amend the budget to increase or decrease any line item. You can do it to any single line item. So that's all you have to do is make a motion to amend it.
Further discussion on Article 4 is amended. In the back of the room, the lady with the voter card.
Faith Jobin, you said that the select board had wanted to change this down to 80 hours, and I'd like to find out why they want to change it to lower it, because I think it's fine where it is.
The board is queried if it so chooses.
I'm going to give it over to Josh Unruh. I wasn't there that night, so I'm not sure.
Steve wants to say something first.
Mr. Skinowski.
Can you hear me?
Turn the microphone on, please.
How about now? Okay, my name is Steve Skibnowski. I'm the newest member of the select board. We came to the select board budget preparation time last year, and we made every effort that we could to cut the budget across the board in various areas that we thought it could be cut. This particular line item, if you compare our police coverage with what they have in neighboring towns, and Guilford is also a border community, our budget is significantly higher than anyone else's, given the types of crime that we have and the population that we have and so forth. We felt that this was a good compromise at the 80,000, at the 80 hours a week, and that we felt that it would provide coverage both during the time the sheriff's department's here and then also with the state police as a backup. And that's the position that we took. We were interested, bottom line, in cutting the budget in a number of areas, not just the police coverage. We cut the budget across the board in various areas, some more significant than others, because we picked a pathway that we felt the town could live with. I guess I would reiterate what Chris said. If you are really displeased with this, you can increase it. But just remember what this increase will do. It will raise taxes on people who perhaps are not as well off as some of you might be, and who may not be able to pay their tax bill as easily as some of us might be. I'm looking at I guess the people most affected by budget increases like this, and 3.5% may not sound like a whole lot, but it is an increase, and somebody's going to have to pay it. And so that's the position I took at the time, and I didn't just take it with this line item, I took it across the board with every portion of the budget that we could get our hands on. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Again, according to Robert's rules, if you've already spoken, you won't be recognized until other people have had a chance to speak. Gentleman sitting by the door. Gentleman sitting by the door.
John Howe. I'm one of the EMS providers on Vernon. I also happen to be a provider over in Guilford. In the comment about the Guilford side, 2 years ago, one of our members went to a call. They don't have police coverage over there. The call was toned out. It wasn't toned out as anything critical or they needed police. The person got there on scene and was assaulted. This is what's gonna happen in Vernon. If we cut our police support back, I'm not gonna go out at night knowing that we're not gonna have a police backup, especially if it's a motor vehicle accident, person's drunk, they get very violent, they could be on drugs, we don't know. But as a volunteer, I'm not putting my life in jeopardy to go out if we don't have the backup or the support. And I think putting lives in front of dollar signs, it's a big no-no. We need to move the police department back up and get the coverage.
Further discussion on the amended article? We're going to go to the middle of the room, Mr. Hicks.
Munson Hicks. Perhaps it would be helpful if Sheriff Clark could inform us. We're going to hear tonight often about trying to find parity with our neighbors and other towns. Perhaps if the sheriff could tell us what Guilford's coverage is and what its incident rate is essentially as compared to ours, it might help us in being able to make an informed decision.
Sheriff Clark is queried if he chooses.
This past year, we didn't provide services to the town of Guilford. They were contracted with VSP, so I do not know what that rate is or what their call volume is because we didn't provide it.
Further discussion on the amended article, middle of the room on this side, we'll work our way back. Yes.
Barbara Mosley. I've had several occasions to appreciate the closeness of the sheriffs being here in town. In fact, just this past year, I would have one of these older people that was tried to be scammed and awakened at 1 a.m. in the morning by a phone call, that famous scam that says your son is in somewhere and needs been hurt or something, he needs money right away to get out of, I guess, to get out of jail or whatever. But anyway, that happened for 2 or 3 nights, and finally I called the sheriff and they came and sat in my yard with my telephone, and sure enough the call came again. I'm not sure what they said, but they never called again. Just this past week, I had to take a friend, on Saturday night actually, to the ER in Brattleboro. And it was a foggy, foggy night, as some of you may remember that it had been a warm day and the snow was starting to melt, creating fog. It was a really bad driving night, but I had the nice fog line and the center line, and I also had the assurance inside me that if I had to need help, I could call and probably the sheriff would be there and escort me the way to the hospital. That proved to be a very, very serious thing. The person I was carrying could barely walk. She was so ill. And as I say, it was that comforting to me to know that I could get some assistance if I really needed with helping her. And I guess the final thing is, just this afternoon, somebody came to my yard, and I have a latch on my door that so people can't just pull it open. That's my storm door. But before I really thought what I was doing, I had lifted up that hook. And here was a really scruffy looking guy in sort of military uniform, vest or, type of uniform that might, piece together. And he said, could you give me a drink of water? And I closed I was kind of baffled and startled, let's say. And he said, I've just come from Tim Ferret's camp. So when he mentioned that name, I do know Tim, I thought, well, I guess this guy is okay. But I latched the door, got some water, and I did pass it out to him. I thought I could throw it at him if I needed to. But anyway, that happened. And the other, I do have one more. I had some people that came to me, and I didn't know them. But it still upsets you if they come and they're looking for money. Because you wonder what they wanted for at that time of day. They were youngish people. And even though I knew them, I didn't give them the money. But I have an idea what they wanted it for, of course. So I think I am an older lady, and as Steve mentioned, some of the people, the older people may find it hard to pay their taxes. I must say that I couldn't spend my tax money better, as far as I'm concerned, than to keep the Sheriff's Department in its fullest shoes.
Further discussion on Article 4 as amended will go all the way back to the gentleman in front of the door.
John Wheeldon. You guys were talking about border towns. South of us, they have full-time law enforcement, same size towns as we are. You guys haven't talked about them. You talk about Guilford. Guilford's decided themselves, like you said, they don't want law enforcement, other than what they're contracted. Other way around us is law enforcement. State of Vermont, they've decided each of the towns don't mandate to have law enforcement. All the other states mandate their towns to have law enforcement. So they have to some way afford that. So our safety, to our townspeople, to our people who, for the town highway department, to the fire and EMS, to the ambulance service that comes into town. If we lose the coverage, it's gonna be harder and harder to get people to go on calls, because we're gonna have to wait 2 hours for state police to come from way up north. And you might have somebody pass away because of that. It's not gonna be just us that's gonna have to deal with it, the town may have a lawsuit for it as well.
There are a number of people with their voter cards up. I'm going to try to recognize them in the order in which I saw them. The gentleman close to the edge, the first, yes, him.
Sir, my name is Matt Godin. This question is for the sheriff. If at the outside chance, when you're providing 80 hours of coverage, what is the maximum amount of time if I pick up the phone and call 911 that I can get a local law enforcement officer at my home or residence under the 80 hours a week of coverage?
Yeah, excuse me, again, it's a period of time where the state police are off duty. They don't cover 24 hours a day either in the state. Their on-call people may be from anywhere within the troop area, which now goes from the Mass line all the way up to mile marker 59 and 91. So if the troopers that are on call have to come from up there, it's call out time plus travel time. You're probably looking at close to 1.5 hours to 2 hours as a max.
Further discussion, I'm going to try to recognize you close to the order in which I saw your hands up. The lady close to the center line, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Julie Ball, and I'd like to amend the line item for the Windham County Sheriff's Department for fiscal year 17-18 to be $232,960.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and I'll need you to get that motion in writing, if you would, Mrs. Ball. Was your number 232,930? Okay. Very, very good. It's been moved and seconded that the line item in the Sheriff's Department budget be amended to read 232,930. Mrs. Ball, if you wish to speak. 960. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Ball, do you wish to speak to your amendment?
Sure. I think the coverage that we get now is excellent, and I would like to keep it the same.
Further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Unruh.
Yeah, I think it's on. Can you hear me?
No. Here you go. Yep.
Hold on?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something that comes up every single year that we've been talking about for probably the last 4 or 5 years. It hasn't changed every year. The select board tries to do something that's fiscally responsible and also takes care of our town at the same time. As Sandy said before, this is your budget. You decide how much you want to pay in taxes on a yearly basis. If you want to spend $250,000 on a police department, that's yours to do. That doesn't have anything to do with us. We made a decision based on what we thought was best for the town. We did that by, as Munson Hicks said, looking at surrounding towns. Maybe I'm out of touch, but I don't see Guilford, I don't see Putney, I don't see Marlboro, I don't see all these other surrounding towns that spend 1/3 to 1/5 of what we spend on a police department right now, having huge crime rates, having huge trouble with their EMS, having huge trouble with their volunteer fire department. I don't see it. Like I said, maybe I'm ignorant to it. I don't believe I am. But that's what we look at as a select board. We look at what's best for the town fiscally. We look at what's best for the town as a whole. And that's how we make our decisions. You guys take it from there.
Further discussion on the amendments by Mrs. Ball. We'll go over to that side of the room, the lady with her card up.
Brandy Bro. This past year, my dad has become quite ill, and we had to call EMS services numerous times. I do not know if he would be alive if we had gone to 80 hours last year. So I'm in support of this amendment.
Further discussion on the Ball amendments. We'll go here and then there. Okay, gentlemen in the center of the side over here.
Jeff Merkel. Just one real quick question. I understand the need for police and what we want. Just a quick calculation, 2,200 people in the town of Vernon, $80,000, additional $880 per person. So 2-person household, $1,600 increase in taxes. I haven't heard anybody talk about, I mean, it's great we got, you want this service, I got it, but what are you gonna take off the table to offset that? Because $1,600 is a lot of money per household.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment over here at the clerk's table.
Hi, Carol Shippey. I live at the elderly housing down here in Vernon, and there are times that 2 or 3 times a week we have the ambulance coming, we have the sheriff's department coming. All of us down there are getting older, and we have 3 or 4 that are really on the edge of having to be going somewhere else. But while they're there, they need the help of the ambulance and the sheriff's department. If the people EMTs won't come in, what's going to happen to the people that are inside? I mean, and they never know when they're going into a building like ours how many other people are there other than just the residents. I vote for this amendment. Those of you that are young, you're going to be getting older later on too, and you're going to want the security of knowing that these people can come in and take care of you. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment in the back of the room. Gentleman with his card up.
Jim Belleville. Somebody correct my math if I'm wrong, but we have 862 taxable parcels according to the state of Vermont. Does that sound correct? roughly?
Yeah, about that.
Okay. So 862 parcels, $87,000, roughly $100 per parcel to balance this out per taxable parcel. My math right?
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment? The gentleman in the second row on this side. Mr. Langeville.
Well, I was just going to make the same math correction as this gentleman. I don't know where the $1,600 came from, but $80,000, there's 3,000 people in town, so another way of looking at it, it's $26.67 per person. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment? I did see a number of people here. Let's see, lady in the center toward the back, then we'll go over on this side.
Eddie Frost. I just want to tell you about something that happened in our neighborhood 3 or 4 years ago. We had a domestic dispute, not from the people that lived in the house, but someone who was staying in the house while they were on vacation. And this domestic dispute spilled over into our property because the woman came to our house for help. And unfortunately, it involved a little baby and got pretty hairy. And we were very thankful to be able to call for help and have someone respond to that. So you can get drawn into situations that you have no idea are going to come to you out of the blue. And I approve of these coverage that we have now.
Further discussion on the Ball amendment? Red sweatshirt there, middle of the room.
Melissa Ferris. Of the 1,900 plus calls that you took, how many were mandatory police clearance?
The sheriff is queried.
I'm not sure what you mean by mandatory police clearance.
Was there a threat of harm before EMS could be involved?
I would have to go back and break down each of those agency assist calls, but when we get that request, we respond based upon an unknown factor, whether or not the fire department doesn't want to go in because their dispatch is telling them there's a risk, or just the overall belief that there's a potential risk.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment? Back of the room.
Andrew Dan, quick question. Is it inappropriate at the time to make a second amendment?
Does it deal with the sheriffs?
Yes, it does.
Then we will allow you to amend the amendment. So please present your proposal and then make sure you write it down and bring it to the chair.
Wondering what the price tag on it would be to split the difference and go for 15 hours a day.
We would query the treasurer on that, or the sheriff. Anybody that has those numbers. Mrs. Turnley.
Cindy Turnley, treasurer. I would have to know from the sheriff's department how much they would, the contract would be in order to figure out how much it would cost per $100,000 home.
Sheriff Clark, we would like to get some information from you, sir. And give him just a couple of seconds to do some quick math on the iPhone. We'll just make sure we get your question answered before we move on. Thank you for your momentary patience. Unfortunately, we haven't embedded town meeting music on hold as yet. Later. Sheriff Clark.
The real quick math, and again, these rates vary depending on the total number of hours, so it would be around $200,000. So you would go from, you can go forward one slide to where that 232 is, you'd be looking at somewhere between $200,000 and $210,000 to go to 15 hours a day versus the 20 you have now.
Mr. Gant, you still have the floor.
Then, because we do need to trim the fat somewhere, and it is going to need to be cut, I propose that we go down to 15 hours a day for the total of $200,000. That should be a decent balance in between preserving our safety of the town and trying to cut the budget down. Thank you.
Do I hear a second on the proposal to amend the amendment?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the sheriff's line item be taken to 15 hours per day to approximately $200,000. Further discussion on Mr. Gant's proposal. Front of the room, please wait for a microphone. We'll try to get to as many of you as we can.
This is a general question. When you're talking about 20 hours a day or 15 hours a week or however you're parsing it out, who decides which hours in a 24-hour period those hours are worked, whether it's during the day or at night?
Sheriff Clark, your query?
So in other words, when you said weekends, you likely wouldn't be here or at night, why wouldn't we just schedule night and weekend hours and not in the middle of the day?
As I also said, that would be negotiated with the board.
Oh, okay.
However, because of the amount that you would be paying, I would have to keep my overtime costs at a minimum or non-existence because there is no funding. That few hours going from 20 hours a day down to less than 12 takes out the flexibility that I currently have by moving the schedule around. So we keep our overtime down to non-existence by shifting the schedule and still providing that 20 hours a day. We would not be able to do that if you reduced it to that 11, 12 hours a day that's being proposed under the original budget.
Further discussion on the proposal?
Tim.
I don't have eyes in the back of my head. Okay, thank you. I really cannot hear you unless you get recognized, Mr. Skibniowski. Okay, please use the microphone, sir.
I was trying to get you to recognize Josh.
Mr. Unruh, do you wish to be recognized? If so, you have the floor, sir.
I wish to be recognized more than anything.
Well, let's talk. You have the floor.
Just a quick question for Sheriff Clark. The contract that you have with Vernon is probably, or if not, the largest contract that you have with any single town. What is the second largest contract that you have other than Vernon?
No, Vernon is my largest. Probably my second largest income would come from doing the prisoner transports we do for the state.
What about town work? I was talking about a town.
Oh, at the town level, Town of Westminster just approved $70,000 for a year at 40 hours per week.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment to the amendment. We'll go around the room, in the back of the room, right there. Yes. We'll try to get to all of you.
Hi, Brett Morrison. Question for Sheriff Clark. For my own understanding, I would assume your management of staff is throughout the county assignments. I feel like I'm being asked to understand it as the contract we make with you is how you're going to have to juggle your overtime. My understanding and my assumption would be that as you manage your complete deputy staff, you're managing overtime across all of your contracts. So am I misunderstanding you and you're actually, or am I understanding you correctly and you manage the overtime by assignments here in Vernon alone, independent of the full schedules that you're managing with your deputy staff? Because if it's the latter, I'm confused why you're presenting it as you're not going to be able to manage at 11, 12, or 15 hours, to Jan Rasmussen's question. Could you clarify which is the reality closest to your management?
What I'm talking about is the overtime needs for the town of Vernon. I don't have, unlike the state police that are paid for by general funds, or a local police department that's typically paid for by general funds, everything the sheriff office does is based upon contracts. So the town of Westminster pays me $70,000 a year for a 40-hour position, same for the town of Stratton. Some towns pay less. So everything that I do is based upon those contracts for those towns.
Use the microphone, please.
Labor and managing to a person's legally obligated overtime is the people you manage, not your contract. So I'm still not feeling like you're answering the question. The question being, if you have a contract for 12 hours with us and you can spread out your 40 hours a week across all of your contracts, you can manage to your overtime obligations to your employees independent of the contract of Vernon. Or it sounds like you're saying that's not the case, which I completely don't understand how that would be.
That's not the case. So every deputy I have on the road is on the road for a contract. When you see a deputy here in Vernon, it's because Vernon's paying for that deputy to be on the road. When you see a deputy working a traffic detail, that construction company's paying for that deputy to be there that day. The state pays me to move prisoners to and from court. Everything that I do for every deputy has to have an underlying contract or funding source to support it. So if my deputies are working here in Vernon under this contract and a case comes in that requires them to work longer hours than your funding, then I have no mechanism to cover that overtime. I can't pass that cost on to another town, because you'd be asking me to have the town of Guilford use their contract to cover the overtime for the town of Vernon.
No, I'm not. Can anyone help me ask my question more clearly? No, am I not being at all clear? If you're not passing the expense on to the deputy, you would call in a different deputy, because don't you have dozens of deputies on your staff that some of them would not be at their overtime limit?
And I do try to do that. However, if I have 3 towns that are not paying for 40 hours a week and I schedule a deputy to put 20 hours in Jamaica, maybe 10 in Marlboro, and 10 in the town of Wyndham, they're at their 40 hours. You're now asking me to take them and give them, it doesn't matter where the overtime has occurred, it still is occurring in the overtime. So I have a certain number of staff based upon the contracts that support them. And so the smaller towns, I'll use the town of Marlboro, for example, their contract is approximately 10 hours a month. So I put a deputy out in the town of Marlboro for that 10 hours a month, and they're focused primarily based upon that contract only to do traffic enforcement. The town of Marlboro is not asking us to do criminal complaints because they know that that would increase their costs. So those deputies that do that are focused just on the traffic enforcement aspects. You're asking us in the town of Vernon to cover all types of calls, which then, if a call comes in when the deputy's towards the tail end of his shift, and he ends up working an extra 2 hours, whether it's a traffic crash or a burglary complaint, I can try to flex it a little bit. The problem is when you go down to just 80 hours, there's not a lot of flex in that week to do that.
Further discussion on the Gantt proposal of amendment. We'll try to get as much around the room as possible. Over by the treasurer's table. Mrs. Sternley.
Cindy Turnley, Town Treasurer. I believe Mr. Gant a while back wanted to know how much that would cost a taxpayer for the $200,000. On a $100,000 home, it would be $60.69. Thank you.
Further discussion on the Gantt proposal of amendments. Back of the room on the far side, Mr. Macy.
Hi, Ron Macy. Keith, if one of your slides up there showed no evening hours and only occasional weekends, that's a scheduling issue, is it not? I mean, if you've got a deputy that doesn't care whether he or she works days or nights, schedule them here from 4 in the afternoon till midnight, and you're still not paying overtime, but we're getting nighttime coverage, which, in my experience, is more important than law enforcement. I mean, is that not your prerogative when to schedule it? We don't tell you when to schedule it.
Correct. And so, at some point, though, I have to make a determination. If you look at the call volumes and when they come in, the majority of the calls come in during Monday through Friday, right around that shift change between day shift and night shift. So yes, I even said weekday coverage during the day and at night, with limited coverage on weekends. Weekends tend to be more of the proactive calls. So again, that would come down to a negotiation with the select board, how they would like to see those hours covered. If you go to 80, how many, which days do you want us out? But it's unlikely that it would be the overnight coverage.
Further discussion on the Gantt proposal of amendment. I believe there's a ton of cards up. This gentleman here on this side will try to get to as many of you as possible. I apologize if you don't think I'm getting to you quickly as possible.
Robert Miller. I know from experience that as soon as you call 911, if they don't get there 5 minutes before you call, you are hurting. And it just seems that every second kind of takes an hour. So the more better the coverage, the better the system. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendments. We're going to go to the front of the room. I believe Mrs. Morrison.
Sandy Morrison. I'm just curious if there are any hours that you have been serving the town where there is nothing happening. Are there, if you're doing 20 hours a day, which you have been this past year, were there hours when there was nothing happening? I mean, I would assume there probably are. Anyway, I've got a couple of other things. I'm wondering if there's a way to be creative about this and have someone that's on call that maybe, is paid to be on call, not as much as if they're working, but even if it's maybe someone retired law enforcement person that would be available to cover that EMT emergency kind of thing in strange hours, like at 3 in the morning, when ordinarily there wouldn't be, I wouldn't think there'd be many calls. I'm just wondering if there's a way to be a little more creative with it, and also with the overtime, if you've had an officer have to work 2 hours longer on a night, wouldn't it be possible to the next beginning of the shift the next day to adjust it so that it wasn't overtime and that didn't hurt your budget or whatever? Just a couple of thoughts, but I'd be curious to know if there's time when we've been paying for coverage and there really isn't anything happening. And then also about the idea of someone on call. I know when I grew up in town, we had a constable, and when there was a problem, we called the constable. I mean, that was a long time ago, and times have changed, and it's very different, but still, there are ways to use on-call possibilities, maybe. I don't know.
lieu of overtime.
Yeah.
Again, we can look at a lot of options. I have to be very careful how I flex people's schedules. When someone works overtime, you're supposed to pay them the overtime. My deputies are pretty flexible, but no one likes to be told, well, take half of tomorrow off because you worked overtime tonight. As far as putting people on call, again, depending on what ultimately comes out of tonight, as far as budget goes, we can look at some other options. But right now, I typically do not put people on paid call-out, except here in Vernon for that, couple of hours per day.
Thank you. Further discussion on the Gantt proposal of amendment to the amendment. About 20 people have your hands up. When you point, I'm going to do the best I can. It may not make you happy, but that's the way it is. Way back in the far corner. Mr. Teets.
Brian Tates. This is for Sheriff Clark. Based on this latest change to the amendment, I'm looking at your screen right now, if we were to increase it to the current requested, do we get callback under that number, or are we still looking at that as being an eliminated option?
If you were to go to the 15 hours a day under the current amendment?
Yeah, the amendment to the amendment.
No, we still would not do call-outs.
Okay.
You'd still have to rely on the state police.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion on the Gantt proposal in the middle of the far side. Lady with her voter card up.
Elizabeth Ellis. I just want to say I don't think that safety is where we should be saving money. I think it's important to have our sheriff's department. I noticed less coverage than we used to have since we dropped. And I don't like that. It's hard to see, it's hard to find them. But I know they're there when you need them, and I just don't think we should be cutting on safety. I think we should be listening to what our oldest residents are saying, and they are saying they want the security of the coverage. And we should be taking care of them. I also have a question for the moderator. Is it possible at this point to vote on Mrs. Ball's?
No, right now, procedure says you need to deal with the Gantt proposal, then no matter what happens, the Ball proposal will either be amended further or not, depending on your vote here. That's where we are as a body. All right? Middle of the room on this side. The lady in the blue.
Heather Cross, I make a motion to move the question.
Second.
Is there a second? Yes. The motion is that we cease debate on the Gantt proposal. It would take.
Point of order?
Yes, Mr. Langeveld, your point of order, sir.
This Gantt amendment, as it's being called, is not for a dollar amount. And this is a budget motion. We're being asked to increase the hours to 15, but since we don't have a dollar amount, I don't believe we can vote on this. Is that a guarantee? We're going to have that in writing, 200,000 plus or minus? I mean, we need a number here, I think.
The number that I had heard from Sheriff Clark was approximately $200,000. I'll ask him to reiterate that, and then we'll see if your point of order is indeed in good order. 1 second.
So, again, based upon the quick math, it would be approximately $200,000. I mean, you're asking, I'd have to sit down at my desk, but $200,000 would get you approximately the 15 hours of coverage that Mr. Gantt was asking for.
On that basis, Mr. Langeveld, I'm going to call your point not well taken, and we'll continue to vote on whether to cease debating the Gantt proposal. All those in favor, again, the motion that we're talking about was the Gantt proposal to change the hourly per day for the Sheriff's Department of 15 hours a day at a cost of approximately $200,000. All those of ending debate on that question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes have it. So again, you're voting on the Gantt proposal of amendment, which the motion was to have the Windham County Sheriff's Office on duty for roughly 15 hours per day at a cost of approximately $200,000. All those in favor of the Gantt proposal, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. The proposal of amendment has been defeated. We're back to the Ball amendment, which would amend the line item for the Windham County Sheriff's Office to read $232,960. Further debate on the Ball proposal. Back of the room, next to the window.
Move the motion.
You have moved and seconded that we cease debate on the Ball proposal. All those in favor of ending debate on the question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Again, the amendment is that you change the line item for the Windham County Sheriff's Office to read $232,960. All those in favor of the amendment as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. Division. A division of the House has been called. The clerks will be ready to do the division of the House. All those in favor of the Ball proposal of amendment, please stand. What's that again? If seven of you stand, we will have a paper ballot on this proposal. Do 7 of you want to have a paper ballot? No. Yes, they do. Let's see those who stand and want the paper ballot. Looks like there's at least 7. We will do a paper ballot on this question. So again, when you came in, you had yes and no stickers. What I want you to do, those with the with the first one, the purple one, if you favor the Ball amendment, please say yes. If you're against it, check off no, and we'll have Mrs. Lindquist will go to the ballot box and take your ballots. Again, if you agree with the proposal of amendment, please say yes. If you're against it, please say no. And the line will form at the ballot box. Wait for the clerk before we get anybody there. There's one over there already. Wait for the clerk, please. Please take your seats. Meeting will come back to order. Again, please take your seats. The meeting will come back to order. This is why I was never a second grade teacher. On the proposal of amendment by Mrs. Ball, which would amend the line item for the Windham County Sheriff's Office to read $232,960. Voting yes, 104. Voting no, 96. I declare the amendment has been approved. We now go to Article number 4 as amended. If we could get a new set of overall numbers, Mrs. Turnley. I just want to make sure that we have the right numbers here. Which the first 2 would be good.
Okay, would now be a good time to mention that the estimated income is incorrect? Or would that come later?
We will consider the estimated income correction a friendly amendment unless there's objection from What's that? No objection from the select board, and I'm sure we don't want to be here all night, so we will consider that a friendly amendment. If you could give us the rundown?
Okay, the total budget would be $2,015,767.78. The new estimated income is $273,700. And the total amount to be raised by taxes would be $1,742,067.78.
Thank you. Unless I hear objection, we're going to consider that the amended Article 4 at this point. I'll read it again. The motion would authorize total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $2,015,767.78, of which $1,742,067.78 would be raised by taxes, and $273,700 by estimated income. Do I have that correct, Mrs. Sternley? Further discussion on Article 4 is amended. In the middle of the room, in the back, the gentleman with the voter card up. Pass the microphone over to him.
Matt Coombs. I move that we amend the select board portion of the budget to remove the position of town administrator in the amount of $50,962, to reduce the FICA to $1,224, remove the town administrator health insurance in the amount of $13,108, and the town administrator dental insurance in the amount of $627. This will reduce the select board portion of the budget to $86,024.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, and Mr. Coombs, I need to have you put that in writing so I can try to paraphrase that in some way. The motion of amendment would be to amend the select board portion of the budget to remove the position of town administrator in the amount of $50,962, reduce the FICA amount by $1,224, and remove the health insurance in the amount of $13,108 and the dental insurance in the amount of $627, reducing the select board portion of the budget to $86,024. Is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded. Mr. Coombs, do you wish to speak to your proposal of amendment further?
Sure. 2 years ago, when we added that position to the budget, we were told that it would more than pay for itself by writing grants and bringing those grants to the town. And to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't happened. In light of where the town is, I lived here for 37 years, and most of that time we didn't have an administrator. I'm just thinking we don't need it at this point. It's an area we could save some money on. Thank you.
Further discussion on the Coombs proposal of amendment? We see Mrs. Burgobi.
Thank you. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we asked our town administrator, Michelle Pong, to provide us a list of her grant activity. From the time that she started in June of 2016 until just recently, the grant activity, my phone doesn't want to stay zoomed in here. So we have received a almost $14,000 grant for municipal planning grant, $15,000 for emergency planning, and there's a pending grant right now for almost $87,000. That's just the financial impact of what you're seeing. I apologize for the people that can't see me over on the right side there. I'm over here. But I would also like to speak to the non-financial asset of having a town administrator. As a select board member, now I've only served one term, 2 years. I did my first year without a town administrator, and I did my second year, not even a full year, with a town administrator. And I can tell you from personal experience that the town administrator, and Michelle specifically, are a huge asset, at least to the select board. You guys may not see it. You're not the recipient of, you know, the 50 emails a week that we get. That has significantly been reduced because questions, complaints, concerns are mostly being fielded by Michelle. And they're things that she can handle. And she has the time to research the things that, for me personally, I work full-time, I've got a family. And as dedicated as I have been to my position here on the select board, there's only so many hours in the day that I have to divide up amongst my responsibilities. And Michelle has been a huge asset for me, I think, because that is her job. You know, I mean, that's what she does during the week. She does the research, you know, she does the field work that personally I can't do. I won't speak for the rest of the board, but as a working individual on your select board, I can't commit the amount of time that Michelle can, and she has. I think she's proved herself financially, but from a non-financial perspective, she's absolutely proved herself in my position.
Further discussion on the Coombs amendment, Mrs. Howe?
Yes, do I have this on?
Yes.
I want to concur with every word that Emily said. Michelle has been absolutely wonderful. I have had more emails, phone calls prior to her coming than I even, that's probably why it drove me so nuts. That's why I'm even not kidding. But she does them and takes them and handles them. If we have anything that we have to research, she's Johnny on the spot, does it for us. I think that it would be a disservice to this town if we took her position away.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. There was a gentleman in the back of the room that had a voter card up back there. Yes. Oh, you don't? Okay. We're going to go to Mr. Skibniowski next.
Can you hear me? Yes. Steve Skibnowski, and once again, I'm a new select board member, but I want to just tell you that we on the select board spent a great deal of time and effort in our selection process for the town administrator. We virtually started that process when I came on the board last March, and we ended up selecting a really very well qualified individual. And she started with us the first week of June. The town administrator, as you've heard from other people here, does a great deal behind the scenes for the town, organizing town departments, helping get the budget process going. And in fact, if that individual were not in that position, some of us would have to drop what we're doing in our regular lives to accomplish what she has. That's number one. I can also tell you that she has made every attempt to be fair and equitable across the lines in all of the departments that she associates with in the town. And I don't think we could ask for a better spokesperson for the town. She's well written. Her grant writing has benefited the Planning Commission, among other groups here, and she can only be building on what she's already done for us. I think Matt, you alluded to the fact you hadn't heard anything about successes that she's had. I don't recall ever getting a call from you about that. Please contact your select board member if you do have questions along those lines. That's what we're here for. I really highly support her continued service, and I can tell you that without her on the board, it would make a significant negative impact in the way that board members are able to conduct the town business for the town.
Further discussion on the Coombs amendment. Front of the room, Mr. Dunkley. Then we've got a couple of others that are back and forth.
Hi, my name is Jeff Dunkley. Tomorrow when you go to the polls, you'll see my name on the ballot.
Mr. Dunkley, I'm
not campaigning.
Okay, I want to make sure we do not campaign.
Can I finish my
Please do.
train of thought? I would not be running for select board without a town administrator in this town. I've had experience before, and again, try not to campaign, but it's not the easiest job in the world being on the select board. And I do feel that a town administrator can make select board members more effective for this town.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment over on that side of the room over there.
Brandy Bro. I have a question and then I guess a comment. My question is, how many hours a week does Michelle work?
105.
The select board, please use a microphone. The board is queried.
I don't really know, but I know it's more than 40 hours a week. And she'll come in on Fridays, she'll come in on the weekends. She's always there if it's needed.
Okay. I've noticed that, like in the school board budget, the nursing salary is around $40,000, and then there is an administrative support salary for around $40,000. So I'm wondering if maybe we can keep the position, but just maybe lower the salary a little bit.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. Back of the room, Mr. Wielden.
Michelle has been trying to help the fire department out. Last year, we were promised some monies for air packs. That money didn't come through. She now has helped with writing a grant for us to offset those monies. If not, the town, we're gonna have to ask the town for that money, which is in the budget for this coming year. If that money does come in, then we won't have to use that money that the town's asking for. So she's been great with us in helping us research that grant and helping write it.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendments. About halfway down on the far side of the room, Mr. Ball.
Mike Ball. Excuse me. I agree 100% with Jeff in that when I was on the board for 6 years, that if we had had an administrator, my life would have been a lot simpler. But also, it's important to remember that Michelle is basically the face, she's the contact person. You have a specific question that does not involve an office like town clerk or town treasurer. You have a general question. I've gone to her a couple times with questions. She was quick, she was fair, she got my questions answered. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment over on this side, Mrs. Scarabisky.
Hi. For the Finance Committee, Michelle has attended several of our meetings and offered us some really good advice. And tonight, she saved my bacon because I have a presentation here, had a family emergency and ran out of the house to be here on time. And she had the papers that I forgot at home. She had copies, extra ones for me here. So Michelle is always, I volunteer on Mondays, so I can only tell you what happens on Mondays in the town clerk's office. But Michelle is always in, and she's always willing to help any department or any citizen that comes in. So I think she's money well spent, and I know that she's an excellent grant writer, and we will save thousands of dollars for the grant money she can bring in.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. Front of the room, Mr. Spencer.
Hi, Bob Spencer. I'm chairman of the Planning Commission. I had the opportunity to work with Michelle in writing a planning grant application called Municipal Planning Grant, and she was a very quick study. Previous year, I wrote it myself. We didn't get funded. This year, we got funded, one of only 3 in Windham County. I think it's short-sighted to have someone who started a job in just last June and not give them a whole year to at least see how it goes. So it's well worth the money.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you. I guess as the person who really pushed for a town administrator, I really should say something here. I hate the fact that we're using a name because I don't think this is about a name. So please, wherever you are, please don't be hurt by this conversation. Sometimes town meeting can get a little out of control with conversation. I know she was here somewhere.
Right there.
You do a great job. I think that this is a discussion about the position. I'm sorry,
I know.
that was pretty embarrassing for you. But anyway, as a person who chaired the board for a while and who served for many years, as time went by, things get more and more difficult for the select board. Every time the legislature passes a law, the legislature has to respond to it. And we're not in Montpelier. We don't have the time to be in Montpelier. That's where the town administrator comes in. We did talk about grant writing, and we did say that whatever person we hired would be worth their weight in gold, but you've got to give somebody more than 8 months. Barely get your feet wet in a job. Don't know where the grants are to look for yet. So, that's going to take a little bit of time. And then with the closure of Vermont Yankee and all of the things that the select board has had to deal with, I don't think most people realize the dedication amongst these people and what it takes to serve a town. It's not just going to a meeting twice a month. It is hours and hours and hours of your own time that is never seen by other people. So you want to keep a select board in this town, we got to give them some help, because no one can put the time that these people have to put in to serving all of us, to making our life better here in the town of Vernon, without the help of qualified people. And that's where a town administrator is worth their weight in gold.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. Several people in the back. Ms. Jobin, you're recognized.
Faith Jobin, can we call a question, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we cease debate on the proposal of amendment. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We've ended debate, and again, the proposal of amendment is to amend the select board portion of the budget to remove the position of town administrator in the amount of $50,962, reduce the FICA to $1,224, remove the health insurance in the amount of $13,108, and dental insurance in the amount of $627, to reduce the select board portion of the budget to $86,024. All those in favor of the proposal of amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. The proposal of amendment is rejected. We now go back to Article number 4, as previously amended by Mrs. Ball. Further discussion on the article. That would be in the middle of the room, Mr. Hicks.
I would like to propose an amendment to the line item for the Planning Commission. I would draw your attention to the pie chart on page 26. The town currently is spending 0% of its money on planning. That's just not the way a town should go. When I was working on the fiber optic subcommittee, we were constrained by, there was no money to be able to talk to the town about the possibilities of the future. So I would like to add, just for the beginning of changing the town's view around, to increase the budget. I move that we increase the budget for planning by $10,000. This will bring the cost to $17,900.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the line item for the Planning Commission be raised by $10,000. Could you write down your amendment, Mr. Hicks? There's a pad of paper over here. Moved and seconded that we make the amendment. Mr. Hicks, do you also wish to speak further to your proposal of amendment? All right, we'll follow you with a microphone. In fact, Ian is chasing you now. Rounding the corner, and Mr. Hicks comes in. Yes, that is fine. Okay, the floor is yours to speak on your proposal of amendment.
Having worked with the Planning Commission and with other people who are interested in the future of the town, our priorities are not clear here. If you look at that pie chart, we are spending 0% of our money on planning. The planning is the most important, practically the most important thing we can do for the town, for now, for the future, for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years. This is a token of what we should be spending. But it's necessary to change how we look at where we're going to go and give the people who are interested in working on the future of the town the tools to do it. Our fiber optic has languished, partly because of a lack of interest, partly because of the inability of us to really tell the town a good story. The other things that have taken, because of funding, until the funding came in for the grants for the Planning Commission to update the town's plan, it languished for 3 years. No fault of the Planning Commission, there just wasn't any money or time to do it. We need to take the time to plan with everybody in mind, and this is the place to start.
Further discussion on the Hicks proposal of amendment? Seeing no such discussion, again, the proposal of amendment is to increase the planning budget by $10,000 to a total of $17,800.
$910.
910, okay, thank you. 17,910? Thank you. Mrs. O'Donnell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We spent a lot of time in committee talking about the budget and what our needs were going to be. And I don't want anybody in this room to think that nothing's going on with the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission is working very, very hard. We attend a lot of meetings, never get fed, but we use our own gas, or we carpool. We're volunteers, and it's what we do. Nothing compared to what I did when I was on the select board. So we really don't have a need right now for that $10,000. But we do know that if something came up that we needed the money, we could go to the select board. There are funds for it. We knew we were applying for the municipal planning grant, and we didn't want to ask for money that we were sure we were going to get this grant when we're the town of Vernon that's just lost its nuclear power plant, and we need to change our plan. That was kind of a no-brainer. We were pretty sure of getting that grant. So I don't want to ask for money we don't need. I really appreciate Mr. Hicks and his support, but there is access if we need it. So I want to reassure people of that.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment? Seeing none, again, I'll read the amendment to increase the budget line for planning by $10,000 to $17,910. All those in favor of the proposal of amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. The amendment proposal has been rejected. We go back again to the article number 4 as amended by Mrs. Ball. Further discussion on the article. Mrs. Rasmussen.
I'd like to query the select board. Could you please speak to the buildings and grounds section where apparently you have eliminated the entire position of the maintenance person?
The board is queried.
And replaced it with part-time people, or I guess contract workers. Could you just explain how you came to that decision and what estimates you may have gotten for the part-time work that you're looking to have done?
Josh. Mr. Unruh.
The elimination of that position obviously is not an easy one because we're talking about somebody's livelihood and somebody's job. So basically what we did is we went out and we took a look at contracted services, somebody to do the plowing, somebody to do the mowing, all the things that Mr. Turnley currently does. We came to the conclusion that we could get those services contracted at a much deeper discount than paying someone a salary, budgeting for healthcare, dental, all that kind of thing. I believe that line item, I don't have it right in front of me, was about a $64,000 savings using a contracted service versus having someone in-house. We recognize that there are some things that aren't going to be done by having somebody in-house, by not having somebody in-house. That's just the way it is. But it's also, we're at a point where we need to find ways to save money. We need to find ways to live more like our neighbors. And this is what we're doing to do it. Is one of the things that we've done. That, let's see, just to give everybody an idea of where we're at this point, we started out this evening with a $241,000 increase in your town budget. Decrease in the town budget. By putting the police department back, we're down to a $150,000 decrease in the budget year over year. This represents about $65,000 of that $153,000 increase. As I said before, this is your town. You charge us as a select board to set a budget that we think is fiscally responsible, that we think can get the job done for the town, and you guys decide how much taxes you want to pay from there. It's your money. It's not ours. Well, it is ours because we're all residents as well. But it's your money to decide how you want to spend it. And if you want a full-time maintenance person in a town office, that's your prerogative. We don't think, as a select board, that it's a necessary position to have at this time when we can contract services at a much lesser rate.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. We'll give you back the floor for a follow-up. Mrs. Rasmussen?
Thank you. Just to follow up, did you actually get bids for the various services for cleaning and shoveling and whatever other services you needed?
Mr. Under.
Yes, we did.
Thanks.
Further discussion on the amended budget. Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Believe me, I know how hard this process is. You want to talk about cutting money. We were involved when a ton of money had to be cut. We started that process, as everybody remembers, by comparing ourselves to our fellow towns. And the maintenance department was something we looked at because there were other communities around us that didn't have a maintenance department. And at that time, we had a full and almost a whole full-time and a 29-hour-a-week person. So we had almost 2 full-time people. So as we started to look deeper, we realized that there was a huge difference between Vernon and our other towns, because our other towns don't use their buildings the way we use our building. There aren't the amount of committees that meet within the building. The seniors in Guilford meet at the Guilford Church. There's not the commotion, the libraries aren't in their buildings. There aren't the people that are going in and out of the building the way Vernon's building is. So that's why we decided in that budget, we cut the maintenance person at first down to part-time and then eventually eliminated that position or just left a stipend in for help for shoveling. I think sometimes when you're looking at budgets, we get so concerned about making it easy for people to live, we sometimes, I always go back to the saying, a penny wise and a pound foolish. Biggest asset in this town is the building that we're in here and the one that's over at the town office. We really have to be concerned about snowy days, people going in and out with wet feet, the floor being washed all the time, the seniors moving their tables and hurting their backs, some seniors shoveling and hurting their backs, and I won't mention who that might be. I think also too, I am aware of twice in this past year that there was a leak in the furnace room. Now, this summer, as some of my neighbors remember, we had a flood because of a blown water tank in our basement. It happened at night, we didn't see it till the next day. We had $26,000 worth of damage in our basement, and a big, huge trailer with all of our furniture from our basement parked in our driveway for 3 months, and our neighbors told us about it all the time, and I apologize to all of you. But it's expensive. There needs to be somebody in monitoring that building. It's too much of an asset for this town. So my proposal is to cut out all of the groundkeeper work, to cut that position down. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to remove a position, but you can cut a position down and save money that way. I think we should start at 29 hours. So that would be an increase to that bottom line of the maintenance department of $19,000. If that works, and it seems like we've got more hours than we need, then next year you cut it down to 25 hours. But I really think it's important to have somebody in that building monitoring that building. So that's my motion.
The proposal of amendment by Mrs. O'Donnell is to increase the maintenance line item by $19,000?
Increase it by 19.
Yes, that's what I said, increased by $19,000. Is there a second? Moved and seconded that the maintenance line item be increased by $19,000. Further discussion on the proposal of amendment. Mrs. O'Donnell, do you wish to speak further on your proposal?
I think I've said enough.
Any further, Mr. Skibniowski?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve Skibniowski. I think it's important to note that even with the 40-hour week that is currently being covered, there are 3 days at the town offices where generally there isn't anyone there except the library staff, which are upstairs, and occasionally someone from the police department downstairs. But we currently only have 4 days a week of coverage there now. And so I don't know that a broken pipe or, and I've had those kinds of ruptures in my cellar too. I didn't have that kind of damage, but I don't keep a lot in my cellar other than some hamsters and quail and stuff. But I will say that that's obviously a potential. There are monitoring systems that you can install fairly reasonably to alert you to the fact that your pipes have just broken. I do want you to understand that it was very difficult for the select board to come up with ways to cut the budget and do it in a way where we could maintain services. And yes, there are concerns that we have even about setting tables up and that kind of thing. But I think what we were looking at going forward was that the town of Vernon has for a long time had a really good situation, a lot of money flowing in, looking for various ways to spend it, and we're not in that situation anymore. And how do these other towns do that? I mean, how do other towns have town offices and town buildings and you know, they're not like recovering from floods and that kind of thing. I think that we really need to forge forward with a reduction in the overhead of this town. And this is one way that we can do it, one way that the select board came up in a way to implement that. So I would support this. I would support this reduction in the town office. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment by Mrs. O'Donnell. Back of the room, Mr. Gann.
Call the question.
Moved and seconded that we end debate on the proposal of amendment by Mrs. O'Donnell. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Again, the proposal of amendment by Mrs. O'Donnell is that we add $19,000 to the maintenance line item within the town budget. All those in favor of the proposal of amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. The amendment has been defeated. Back to the town budget as previously amended by Mrs. Ball. Further discussion on Article 4 as it now stands. Back of the room, Mr. Wheeldon.
Call the question.
Second.
All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You cease debate. Okay. Let's see if we have this budget as previously amended correct. The motion, as it now reads, is that we authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenses of $2,015,767.78, of which $1,742,067.78 will be raised by taxes, and $273,200 by estimated income. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of Article 4 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it.
Division of the House.
The division of the House has been called for. All those in favor of Article 4, please stand. Let's get a count from our clerks and JPs.
2,141, I believe, last time I checked.
I know, I did too. I wasn't closing it.
No, I just wish it went down. I know. I expect that to happen every year, to be honest. I would like to kind of leave the room, though. Like, really? I've been here for 8 months? Yeah.
Me too.
I don't know. Could happen at any time. I knew that when I took the next one. It would have been nice if they stopped saying my name though. He doesn't hate me. Yeah. I know that. I remember that was
Okay. All right, please be seated. All those opposed to Article number 4, please stand. Please remain standing until you're counted, and we'll tell you when you can sit down. Please be seated. Please listen to the results of your vote. Again, on Article 4, the town budget, voting yes, 117, voting no, 96. I declare the article has been passed. We now move to Article number 5. Shall the voters, let me just make sure I have all my paperwork here. Shall the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $70,000 for administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $70,000 will be raised by taxes? Is there a motion?
Yes.
Mr. Skibniowski. Yeah, you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For Article 5, I'm the one that reviewed this. Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $70,000 for administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $70,000 shall be raised by taxes.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $70,000 for administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $70,000 shall be raised by taxes. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I do, and thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Moderator. We, on the select board, once again, you probably think this is a broken record at this point, but we did look at a number of factors involving the library expenditure and requests for funds for the upcoming year. And we felt that this would bring the library cost for the taxpayer more in keeping with the costs of other libraries. And so we considered the $70,000 to be an appropriate amount of money for the administration of the Vernon Free Library.
Thank you. Further discussion on the article, Ms. Lockever.
I move, Ron Lockever, Library Board of Trustees member. Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the motion by substituting $109,935 for the $70,000. $106,786 shall be raised by taxes, and the balance of $3,149 shall come from the prior year's surplus. The amended Article 5 would read as follows. Shall the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $109,935 for the administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $106,786 shall be raised by taxes, and the balance of $3,149 shall be from the prior year's surplus.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $109,935 for administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $106,786 shall be raised by taxes. The balance of $3,149 shall be from the prior year's surplus. Ms. Lockever, would you wish to speak to your amendment?
I would like Janice Pereira to speak to the PowerPoint that we have prepared. And I have it written down also, if you want it, in my handwriting.
Yes, we would like that to come to the chair. The microphone has been passed.
Janice Pereira, Mr. Moderator. In comparing ours to other towns around the area, the hours of being open, the holdings of our library, the visits we have to our library. For example, we have 59 children that came to our children's program. That's a third of the school. Our budget was reduced by $16,000 since the announcement of the 2012 Vermont Yankees closing. Our library assistant's position has been eliminated from the 17-18 budget. The tax impact on a $2,000 home is approximately $5.50 a month, which is $66 a year. $66 for a year. The membership to join the Brooks Library is $62 for one person, and if I join and my husband join, it'd be another $5. The school library proposed budget is $85,000, which serves 165 children for only 9.5 months of the year. The library holds a very special place in my heart, so I don't know, I should be, any other comments?
Okay.
32% of our Vernon citizens are members, and that's 9,000 visits per year. We have 109 new patrons since last year. We have over 18,000 items in our collection, with 11,000 items circulated last year. We have free downloadable 7,621 ebooks and 4,041 audiobooks. We have public access computers and Wi-Fi accessibility, high-speed connection. Only place in town we've got that free. 17,000 in our program attendance. Preschool story time was 4 times per month. Our reading group meets monthly. Weekly programs are the Rhyme Time, the Knitting Group, the Cribbage Club. We have adult, young adult, and children's summer reading programs, free basic computer classes, and our outreach to the Hubble Hill Senior Housing. And just being in the library as a volunteer, you'll see sometimes people coming in and the librarian plus our children's librarian don't sit down because they're doing so many services of helping people with resumes and their tax reports, etc.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment to Article number 5. In the front of the room, the gentleman in the checkered shirt.
Roger Dietrich. My understanding was that the select board asked all of the town departments to reduce their budget by a specific amount. I don't remember whether it was 6% or something like that. And then on top of that, we were told that, well, the library had a higher budget than surrounding towns, and so this 40,000 was slashed. But it doesn't seem like that same principle was applied to other departments. And specifically, looking at the pie chart here, the library consumes 5% of the town budget, and the recreation department is about 27%. And if we want to compare to other towns to see how much they spend on their pool, oh gee, they don't have a pool. And so it seems that that this type of thing is not really being applied fairly. And so if you're going to make major slashes and things, then let's look where the money's really being spent. And I don't think it's being done fairly in this case, because knowledgeable people within the library feel that cutting it this amount may be the first step towards the end of the library. It's just too much all at once, in my opinion. Thank you.
Chair would recognize Mr. Unruh.
First, I just got a statement about the actual budget for the library. We heard about all the programs that they provide, which is fantastic. Out of their budget, $36,000 is towards programs. The rest is towards salary and FICA and insurances and all that kind of thing. So $70,000 more than is adequate to continue the programs that we have right now. What the select board is looking for the town to do, if you support the library as much as everybody says we do, we have plenty of money to have part-time people running the library and plenty of people that are willing to volunteer that love the library as much as everybody else does. That's what we're looking to do with the library's budget. There's enough money for programs, there's enough money to have somebody run the library, volunteers need to take care of the rest. I'll speak to what this gentleman just mentioned regarding the spending of the rec department. What you don't see on that pie chart is the income of the rec department. With the income of the rec department, I believe as of last year cost the town $168,000. That was the actual cost of the town after the income. So you're talking about a department that runs essentially 12 hours a day all year long. From 8 to 8, they're open providing programs for our town. They have a $158,000 impact. Then we look at a library that I believe we spent $116,000 on this last year. That's not very much more money for a program that's open essentially 24 hours. It is. It's open 24 hours a week during the winter. It's open 26 hours a week during the summer. So for $40,000 more, if we want to compare apples to apples on departments, you have every single school sport that's provided. Every single coach that does those school sports are volunteers. You have all the programs that the rec provides. You have the pool, you have the rec area, and none of those things are gonna go away. If the rec department goes away tomorrow, we still have buildings to maintain, regardless of whether anybody's using them or not. So why wouldn't we use them? It makes no sense, and the argument is not there.
Point of order.
What is your point of order, ma'am? Please wait for the microphone.
I believe, even though it's not stated, the intention of this reduction is to reduce salary, and that is against the law of the state of Vermont. The 2002 Supreme Court of the state of Vermont forbids the select board from reducing library salaries.
There is a point of order of which I am unclear about the existing law, so if I may find the town attorney, Mr. Slayson is here, maybe he can shed some light on the question. Mr. Slayson.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Moderator. Our firm did provide the town with an opinion. I have that with us this evening, and it basically states, and we refer to a Supreme Court decision, the Library Trustees, Hartford Board of Library Trustees versus the town of Hartford. But in that case, the Supreme Court confirmed that, or affirmed the principle that the town select board and the town have sole authority to fund the library. The trustees, however, have sole authority to manage the library, including the authority to set the levels of compensation for the librarian within the budget and the funding established by the select board.
On that basis, I'm going to declare your point of order not in order. We will continue discussion of the proposal of amendment by Mrs. Lockever. I'm going to go to the hand in the middle of the back side of the room there. Then I've got a couple of others on both sides. Go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, my name is Julie Ball, and I'm a library trustee. And I want to let you know that the trustees chose to amend Article 5 to include the increases proposed by petition in Article 6. In fiscal year 15-16, the Vernon Free Library operating budget was $121,599. This current year, fiscal year 16-17, the Vernon Free Library's operating budget is $115,610. And that reflects nearly $6,000 or a 5% decrease from the previous year. As the budget session began for fiscal year 17-18, our select board directed all departments to aim at a 6% reduction in expenses from their current operating budget. After careful review, our librarian drafted and the trustees endorsed an operating budget that would have realized another 5% decrease. Over the past 2 years, our town has decreased the library budget by 10%, or approximately $12,000. Our select board declined to accept the library budget, and it placed the select board, in its place, the select board submitted Article 5, a library budget totaling $70,000, which is 38% decrease from our current fiscal year. A yes vote for this amendment will still decrease the library's operating budget from our current operating budget while maintaining the programs and services of this valuable community service. Please keep in mind that all people, especially those with limited means, use public libraries to access the internet. Our town library has the only free public high-speed fiber optic internet access in our town. Our library is used by many to find work, apply for college, to do homework, to do homework, as well as a place to learn about various medical treatments and to secure government benefits. Where else can you borrow an item of value for free, be it a classic or the newest bestseller, in your choice of hardcover or as an electronic book? Where else can you borrow a movie for free, or music, magazines, or art? More than just books and banks of computers, libraries are places where people gather to explore, interact, and imagine. The 125 people who signed the petition and the Vernon Free Library trustees strongly support the passage of this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendments? Front of the room, the woman with her voter card up.
You know, there's been a lot of talk all evening this evening, and certainly all year last year, about saving money. The select board has worked very hard to try and bring some sort of efficiency to our budget and to save some money. We, in fact, have cut out a complete person this year. Now, I guess I need to query the treasurer, because, Cindy, it was my impression that last year, town employees received a 2.5% raise, salary increase. Is it not true that the library staff chose to give themselves a 5% increase?
The treasurer is queried if she so chooses.
The town employees received a 2.5% increase. The librarian and the children's librarian received a 5% increase last year, or this current year that we're in.
Thank you. So in the spirit of saving money, you decided to double the raises of all of the rest of the town employees last year. So I question how you're saving money and how this is in the spirit of what the rest of the town has to do, which is cut, not spend. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment? Let's go back of the room. I believe that's Ms. Burrington.
I am actually for the library, and I've been a trustee in the library before, but I've also visited a lot of other libraries around the area. And one of the things that I noticed a lot of other libraries have is either a Friends of Library, or they're an Amazon reseller, or they have different ways of making money, and they're able to make quite a bit of money. And if we have a lot of people that are really interested in helping a library, getting started with a Friends of Library or something to help promote these funds might be another way of doing it without having it come out of the townspeople's pockets all the time.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment? Back of the room, I believe that's Mr. Gann.
I guess this would be a question for the trustees. Just out of curiosity, did any fundraising happen last year, or was any other kind of income trying to be brought in to help out the library?
The library trustees queried as soon as they get a microphone.
Other than the book sale?
The trustees again are queried. Ms. Cord.
Kathy Core, library trustee. Thank you for your question. The trustees began working in the spring after the previous town meeting on an annual campaign. We worked very hard, and we sent out our letter in the fall to the townspeople to begin what we hope is an annual effort to raise money.
900 letters.
We sent out 900 letters to the patrons of the library and everyone, and we did receive, $2,756, which is modest, but hopefully, as many of you know, when you're starting a fundraising campaign, you have to start rather small and then build up. So we have done that. We have been soliciting more volunteers to help in the library. We haven't had trainings yet for them, but we hope to do that after town meeting takes place, and we kind of see where we stand after this meeting. And we have done other fundraising activities. We had a plant sale In the early summer, we are holding regular flower arranging workshops that have been very popular. And books, we have an ongoing book sale, so we do that. And we have begun some conversations with the town administrator to begin looking into other funding sources, such as grants. So we have taken the concerns to heart that were raised in last year's town meeting, and we have begun making those efforts.
Way back in the room against the cabinet, I believe that's Mrs. Zerber.
Jessica Freeman Hart. I teach at the middle school, and believe me, it is not easy to be up here saying I support cuts to the library. I promise you that that doesn't come without some deep thought. But we sat in this town meeting last year, and our tax stabilization committee presented to us really alarming numbers of less revenue from Vermont Yankee. And they didn't make that same presentation, but those cuts are still coming. And they're coming for 3 years from now. And I know that I'm not the only person in this room that saw a significant increase in their taxes last year. And I know I'm not the only person in this room that looks very, very carefully at their own household budget and expects the town to do the same. I promise you I'm a supporter of the library, but I cannot support a figure of money that is so significantly larger than towns of a similar population. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment, middle of the room, looks about, I believe that's Mrs. Frost back there.
Peggy Frost. Josh gave us quite a education on the rec department. And it's true, we do have a wonderful rec department, and I tried to compare it to other towns, but no other town has a rec department, except Wilmington does have a recreation budget of $12,000. That's about as close as I could come to any other town. And the rec department does a wonderful thing, and I was one of the reasons that we have a rec department. The PTC brought in a lady in the 1970s, I think it was, Teresa Berngarden from Brattleboro, who was the director.
I want to call a point of order. We're talking about the library, not the recreation department.
Josh did the same thing. I'm just doing what he did. So anyway, I'll move on. I'll agree to move on.
Thank you.
I've lost my train of thought, however. The library serves all age groups, from preschool to whatever age you are. And I've taken advantage, and my husband's taken advantage of a lot of the programs. And I'd hate to see that go away, and I think it's wrong to cut it by this amount when we're not cutting the other departments that could be cut, and aren't even discussed.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendment, Mr. Christensen.
Gordon Christensen. I appreciate all the work that the select board has done in trying to cut our budget. I still feel, though, as a 25-year resident of the town of Vernon, that we tend to have this caviar taste still on a tuna fish wallet. And I don't think we can afford it. The $30 here, the $60 there. Jessica, I heard what you said. My taxes were up $1,000, and I'm sure everybody's was. So we need to look deep and hard. And we took a look at the police department earlier. We spent a lot of time to triple the coverage of the nearest town that has 2/3 the population of Vernon. We have 2,100 people, they have 3,100 people, and we tripled their coverage. Okay, I understand we need protection. Good, but we need to make cuts somewhere, and so here is what I would move. I would move, make an amendment. Not sure how you do this, Tim. Work with me. I move that the voters appropriate $0 for the administration of the Vernon Free Library, and we seek to replace the positions of librarian and the children's librarian with volunteer positions.
I'm going to ask the town attorney to rule on the propriety of that amendment. Because we're dealing with a library budget, and the question is, can we say $0? And I'm unclear about that. Mr. Sleason.
No, Mr. Moderator, I haven't been faced with that question, but it would seem to me that if you can amend a monetary sum in an article, that the voters, if this is the will of the voters, to fund a program at zero, I believe they have that authority to do so. It's germane to the article. It's a funding motion, and I think therefore it's relevant.
Therefore,
An amendment.
actually, you can, as we said before, you can amend an amendment. So if it's something that you are not comfortable with, please vote down Mr. Christensen's proposal, and then we revert back to the proposal that Ms. Lockever came up with.
I second that.
Second.
So Mr. Christensen's motion has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the proposal? Far corner of the room, everybody's waving their voter cards at me. We'll do the best we can.
Jim Belleville. I'm not sure that most people understand what a librarian actually is. A librarian is actually a master's level degree. This is not something that volunteers can step up and do. You have to know how to assign Dewey Decimal numbers to all of the books. You have to know all of the reference materials and have studied all of the different reference things. When somebody comes in with a question, this is part of your job. You have to understand when you're doing the rhyme times and setting that up, how children's brains develop and how you can interact with them in order to help stimulate their early literacy. My wife is the Brattleboro Youth Services Librarian. I watched her get her degree. I watched her go through these classes. I've seen what she's done with the kids there as far as their early learning, and some of those kids that, the early motor skills, phonetical awareness, things like that. So cutting the budget cuts a very important service for the youngsters in this community that we want to grow up and actually make something of themselves and do good by the school and do good by the town. The library is usually the first refuge for these kids. If they don't do sports, they end up at the library. This is where they learn, this is where they interact. Trying to think what else I could possibly say without getting too personal. I'm sorry, I'm a book guy. But this is an important resource. We have, when we compare our library to other libraries in surrounding towns, we have the infrastructure here. We have the building, we have the collection. These other towns do not. The Guilford Free Library is a tiny, tiny, tiny building that has, books sort of stacked around everywhere. Tiny, tiny collection. We have a resource here. To defund it is to basically throw away the opportunity that this offers everybody in this community. If you go on the website, you'll see there's actually adult continuing ed that's available through the library website. If you're going on a long trip, download ebooks for the kids, audiobooks for the kids. I really, in every town that I've lived in recently, when they're looking to go for the soft underbelly of the town, the first thing they do is they start going after the library and cutting the library budget down, because that's where, if you don't use it, you don't think about it. And then when you go to need it, it's not there. So cutting it out is short-sighted.
Further discussion on the Christensen proposal of amendments? Mrs. Ewan. It's coming your way.
Thank you, Paula Ewan. I don't think that we should defund the library by any means, but although I do have to say, we have a beautiful library at our school. Our children have probably one of the best libraries that there are. We have our recreation department who does a fabulous job with our kids after school and in the summer times. My point is, it's like we're paying for our libraries. We pay to rent this school for the recreation department, plus we have a library here, which is wonderful. Our library is only open, what, 25, 26 hours? And to spend $70,000, I understand it is probably a difficult job and I probably wouldn't want it. But I think, again, we were willing to cut our police department, but I don't think, like I said, I don't think we should defund it, but I do not agree with the $70,000 nor the proposed higher rate. Thank you.
Further discussion on the Christensen proposal of amendment, Mrs. Manning.
Hi, Norma Manning. I don't know how many were here when there was a great suggestion that people come out and paint the cemetery fence. And there seemed to be a lot of support for that, will save money. And so the town said, sure, let's have volunteers come out. And I saw one poor woman, I never stopped to help her, sitting out there painting that darn fence up until the time a car came and hit it. Or something happened to it and knocked it down. She got paid, sorry. But the point is, I was involved in starting an after-school program in Hinsdale, and at that time when we wrote a grant, the person who came in to help us write the grant told us that a volunteer lasts less than 2 years. That we had to pay a stipend of $20 an hour if we expected to keep anybody.
That's a stipend, I want
That was over in Hinsdale, New Hampshire. They earn more money than our paraeducators did. I've heard people talk about the rec and how the rec is costing us money, and if I could just kind of look, real quick question to Seth.
We actually are talking about the library budget.
Yes.
We've gone past the recreation budget, so the time for that has passed.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to say that asking for volunteers is a great idea, but I just didn't see any come out to paint that fence.
Further discussion on the proposal of amendments. I want to try to vary this a little bit. Mr. Busely.
I think the library is a very important asset. The school library for K through 6 is wonderful, and you spend quite a bit of money on it. But what do you do when you get out of the 6th grade for learning? You never stop learning in your life, no matter how old you get. And to cut out the library or cut the budget, you're cutting your education, and you're cutting your learning ability. And once you do that, you might as well just pack it in. So
Further discussion, back of the room, Ms. Jobin.
Okay, Jobin, call the question, please. Yes, thank you.
Did I hear a second on that motion? Moved and seconded that we cease debate on the Christensen proposal of amendment. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. So your motion, your proposal of amending the amendment from Mr. Christensen is to appropriate $0 for support of the Vernon Free Library. All those in favor of the proposal, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. You are back to the Zlotogor proposal of amendment. To repeat that, to appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $109,935 for administration at the Vernon Free Library, of which $106,786 should be raised by taxes, and the balance of $3,149 from the prior year's surplus. Chair would recognize Mrs. Merkel.
Hi, Ellen Merkel. I just wanted to say, we compared, or they compared, to other libraries in the area that work on a much smaller budget. I think it's doable here in this town. I think it's a challenge, but it needs to be done. Because if other towns can do this with raising money, friends at the library, volunteers, why can we not? I mean, we have to cut somewhere, and I understand maybe the library won't be able to offer the services that they did, but when we went through a pay cut, my husband and I several years ago, we cut back. We got rid of the cable. We got rid of all the fun things that we wanted to have, okay? You just do that. That's part of running a budget. You have to make concessions. That's it.
Further discussion on the Zlotogor proposal of amendment. The woman in the, yes, that would be you.
Samantha Beatty, call the question.
Moved and seconded, we cease debate on the Zlotogor proposal of amendment. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You cease debate. Again, we are at the Zlotogor amendment to Article number 5. I'll dispense with reading it unless you want me to. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. The amendment proposal has been defeated. We now go back to the original Article number 5 as read, which is, shall the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $70,000 for administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $70,000 shall be raised by taxes. Further discussion on the motion. Gentleman with the green sweater in the back of the room.
Beat me to it.
Again, the microphone thing.
Call the question.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You cease debate. Again, the article is for the voters to appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $70,000 for administration of the Vernon Free Library, for which $70,000 shall be raised by taxes. All those in favor of the article as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and you have passed Article 5 as read. Article 6, we're going to go to Article 6 before we shut down for the night. It's after 10 o'clock, but since those are so closely related, we're going to go there, unless there's large objections from the body. Point of order. Wait for the microphone, Mrs. Earp.
I believe one of the library trustees said that in lieu of that article, they amended it for the next article, so I feel like we've already voted on this.
Well, I want to make sure that we get that disposed one way or the other. If someone wants to move to not consider the article, we can do that, but we have to go through the motions here. We have to go by the rules. That's what we do here. Article 6. Shall the voters raise and appropriate $39,900 in addition to the proposed $70,000 for the administration of the Vernon Free Library? Do we have a motion? Mrs. O'Donnell.
Just call the question or move?
I need somebody to move the article before we can.
So moved.
All right. Moved and seconded that the voters raise and appropriate $39,000 in addition to the proposed $70,000 for support of the Vernon Free Library. Do we have discussion on the motion? Mr. Merkel. The motion has been made to cease debate on this article. Seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You cease debate. Again, all those in favor of Article number 6 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. You have defeated Article number 6. Unless there's objection from the body, we're going to go to recess of our meeting until 6:30 Wednesday night. Again, voting tomorrow, 7 to 7, at the town hall. We will see you all there. Mr. Sternley is going to give us some budget numbers, please. Please return your voting cards. We will see you tomorrow at the polls and Wednesday night here at the meeting. Thank you.